Hello everyone. For this edition of Inspiher, we have a very influential guest with us, Ranjani Mani, who is the Director of Analytics and Data Products at VMware and also leads the global team of data scientists, analytic manager and product manager across 4 geographies. She has received the Women in AI Leadership Award 2021 and is also one of the top 150 AI and analytics leader of 2021. She is a great mentor, speaker, and is passionate about building products and teams. She is an avid reader and is keen on encouraging more women to step into the industry. Hello, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Rishabh. Hi, team. Great to be here as well. Great to see such an enthusiastic bunch of students trying to do this. Yeah.
Ma'am, we are living in a world of social media. Social media is the main thing right now. Mm-hmm. And you're pretty active on social media platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, and you put out your content regularly. We are sure it takes a lot of effort to do so. What's your inspiration? How you take out time to do social media along with your career and everything?
Yeah, right. I definitely get this question a lot, Rishabh, right? And I think, so here's a little secret, right? So I think if you were to figure out what you love doing, which to others may seem like work, then it becomes easy, right? So if you figure that out, then the effort doesn't worry you as much. So for me, I generally love reading books. I like writing. I like learning about tech. So putting out content in that space, right? It's an effort that takes lesser motivation to me than to someone else to whom it may seem like work, right? So that's I think the key, identifying that. But what I also find heartening is a lot of young folks like you folks are doing this fabulously well, right? Way better than what I have done when I was your age probably, right? So given that our education focuses so much on theory versus implementation, I would say the best thing you can do is to work towards getting your hands dirty and understanding what you really enjoy and put it out there, right? I think there was a bunch of students at BITS Pilani who are still doing the graduation, right? And each of them have this YouTube channel. They explore their favorite areas across tech. They're building their massive community in the process. So it's definitely helpful. It's a win-win, right? And maybe one other example, I was a part of the Kegel meet recently, and it was hosted by this third-year student, and he had brought in industry experts to talk to students on a regular basis, right? So think about it. He's kind of getting the first row seats to everything which is happening out there. He's getting the connects. He's building the community. He's putting his work out there. So there's definitely these multiple benefits to learning by doing and getting immediate feedback, networking, getting connected to the industry leaders, and most importantly, showcasing your portfolio of tangible work, right? So yeah, absolutely recommend people do that. The key, as I said, when I started off, is to identify what seems like work to others, but doesn't seem to you, right? Identify your niche and get started from there.
Very true, ma'am. If we love what we do, it doesn't seem as we are working. It's we are doing what we want to do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's a really great take on that. Ma'am, talking about social media, there are platforms like LinkedIn where people share their achievements, milestones. And there are people like us who sometimes feel a bit of inferiority complex about others' achievement. What's your take on such apps? Is it really important to stay active on LinkedIn? And how do you deal with that inferiority complex that comes with that?
Yeah. No, again, I think this is another thing which I hear often, right? A lot of these young women I mentor, they kind of ask me the same thing. You know what, but I don't think I'm an expert in this, Ranjani. How do I do this, right? I don't feel like I'm confident enough. But here's the thing, right? No one is an expert, right? All of us are learning. I feel this each and every time. I feel this imposter syndrome. Who am I to post about this, right? Why will they listen to me? So it's about acknowledging that fear and being okay with it, right? But here's the thing. So fear kind of holds us back from putting ourselves out there, right? And I think it's also more evident in women than men. I think I was reading a study, Rishabh, which said that women consistently rated their performance on a test lower than men did, right? Even though both groups had the same average score. So when men on an average gave themselves 61 out of 100, women gave them, so it's a 46 out of 100, right? Even when the employer told them that their self-evaluation will be used to decide whether they'll hire them or not, they still self-promoted less than men. So I think it's there across both genders, more so with women. So the bottom line is, stop telling yourself that you're not qualified enough, or not worthy enough, or not experienced enough, right? I think there was this great quote that said, growth happens when you start doing things you're not qualified to do. So that's what I would leave you with, right? There's never a perfect moment to get started.
Ma'am, but sometimes there's a fear, what if I overdo? Like, there's a fear that what if I overwrite, or what if I oversay? Like, there's a possibility that I am portraying myself and I am not that exactly. Like, I am adding some things. Like, there's a certain fear in our mind while we are portraying ourselves. How to deal with that? Like,
so you're saying, you fear yourself whether you are capable enough to do that, right? Or you're the right person to do that.
Exactly.
No, I think that's very, very common, Rishabh, right? I was saying, right? I feel this each and every time when I'm posting about a completely new technology like crypto, right? Like, why will people listen to me? But the key is, I do this for myself more than for others. And honestly, Rishabh, over a period of time, what I've learned is people don't think about others as much as they think about themselves, right? Like, you can keep thinking, oh, what will others think? They don't notice you as much as you notice yourself. So it's more of a self-imposed boundary than others doing it, honestly, right? And the only way, so here's the other thing I believe, right? The only way you get better is by trying it out, by doing this, by talking about it, by writing about it, right? So you can sit and plan all you want, but unless you actually get your hands dirty, you don't learn. So think of it more as a learning thing versus, I'm doing it for others' likes. And that's a sure shot path to failure, right? Like, if you're going to post because you want likes, engagement, increasing the audience, if that is the goal, that's going to fizzle away, right? But if your goal is more self-centered, to say, okay, this is something I'm going to do, whether, I get engagement or not, doesn't matter. It is purely for the love of doing it, right? Then you're going to stick to it. So getting that motivation right, and then it is definitely, to start with, it is definitely difficult, right? Rishabh, you post something and then after 10 hours, I think probably the first time I posted, it was just my husband and my mom who liked it, right? So you definitely question, oh my God, am I doing something wrong out there? But just stick to it, right? That consistency, people give up. That's the thing, right? Be consistent. And that in itself will differentiate you from 99% of the rest of the folks, right? Yeah.
Completely agree, ma'am. Like, we have to take that first step. Like, we have to post whatever we want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we are in this stage where a lot of things are happening in our life. Like, with career, with personal life, with everything. How can we take complete ownership of what we are doing, like our career and our life?
Yeah, okay. That's a kind of like a favorite question I get asked a lot, right? So yeah, here's the thing, okay? And this is a book recommendation. I read a lot, like I told you, right, Rishabh? This is something which I would recommend to all of you folks as well when you start your careers. It's called Linchpin, okay? And it's one of my favorite books. And he talks about this example, right? The whole idea about the book is, how do you differentiate yourself in your career and your life? How do you take ownership, as you call that, right? So he gives this example of this village in China. I think it's in China. It's outside of Shenzhen. It's called Dafan, I think, the village's name. Okay. And apparently over there, 60% of the new oil paintings worldwide, right, that's produced in that place. And the workers in this place, Dafan, they're very diligent, right? And they're very talented, but they are not artists, they are painters, right? And what's the difference between those? So think of them as they're like cogs in this painting machine, right? So the author, Seth Godin, he talks about 2 paintings which he owns from this place, which is like around $60 each. Does he know who or which resident in that village painted them? No. Does anyone care? No, right? That's because these painters are replaceable. So that's what he says, right? So if you kind of draw that analogy to like workplaces and generally in life as well, right? It is more essential in order to survive in a workplace, this concept of becoming an artist versus a painter, because The days of being a cog in the wheel is over, both for ourselves and for the teams we lead, right? Like we're not in that industrial era anymore where you're saying, okay, I'll do this my part and I'll do it very well, right? Right now, it's not about that. You work in very ambiguous situations, right? No one is really told do A, B, C, D. Like I wouldn't really want someone like that on my team because it's very ambiguous, right? I need that people to take that ownership. So it's not about following instructions or meeting specifications. If that's all you can do, then there's always going to be someone, right, Rishabh, who can do it better or cheaper than you.
True,
so your art is what you do when no one can tell you how exactly to do it, right? So at the end of the day, whether you choose data science or you choose any role for that matter, you go above your job description to connect the dots by taking responsibility, by taking ownership. Are you challenging the status quo to make things better? So that's the key, right? So the single biggest trait in any hire I make when I go out and interview people is do they take ownership of it, right? Because the world is ambiguous. You need to be able to drive through it, right? So bottom line, be an artist, not a painter. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Ma'am, so rightly said. Like you made it crystal clear. Like I can look ahead in my life and just have that fine line between everything. Ma'am, that was like truly great. Now you have been in the field of data science for more than 14 years. For someone like me, like I am planning to start my journey in data science, what advice would you give? Like how should I go ahead? How should I know I am interested in doing data science? Like what advice will you give to like people like us out there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question as well, right? Let me take a step back first, right? So data without the right context is just noise, all right? And a lot of reports talk about this, Rishabh. So I think there was a Gartner report recently. They predicted that 80% of analytics insights, it will not deliver business outcomes. Okay, basically you're doing a lot of analytics, but it's not driving business value. And this is until 2022. Now, this is conundrum if you think about it, right? There's so much of hype around analytics and AI. Everyone's investing in it. But on the other hand, it's not delivering results as much as you want it, at least, right? So that's the key to identifying where you can fit in, right? So success in data sciences lies in identifying how you can drive value. And that, for that matter, any other field as well, right? So for any one person who wants to be indispensable at their jobs, they ideally would want to spend the first 3 months asking questions more than providing solutions. So as a new fresh graduate getting into a workplace, that's what I would recommend, right? So talk to people around, ask about the challenges, larger business problems they're solving, how it impacts the business and how they define success, right? So even before, everyone wants to build shiny things, right? They want to build models, they want to build neural networks, but even before you get to that, get a thorough understanding of the data. So one of the things we do, Rishabh, in our team when we're onboarding people is get them a buddy mentor. And they shadow this experienced resource. We also get them to do a data exercise. We get them to do product trainings and then do a review with the team, right? Basically, they should be able to look at the data and answer questions, right? Basic fundamental questions about the data. Now, second part, I would probably call out skills versus focus, right? When you're starting off, think about what kind of analytics maturity does the organization have. So most organizations start with a very lean generalist team. In such cases, right, they would expect the hire to be able to like roll their sleeves up and help out, right, across whether they do write code or build APIs, right? But if you're going to an organization with more mature setups, you need to go deeper. And they have a clear delineation between, say, data engineering, data management, analytics, governance, so on and so forth. So identify what kind of organization would fit in for you, right, when you start off. And having said that, I highly recommend you don't try to become an expert at everything, right? Like identify what's your core skills. Like I have people on my team who are great at storytelling, some who write really good code, some who do stakeholder interactions very well, some who do data engineering and build pipelines well and deploy models. So identify what your strength is, right? And kind of figure out how to become better at it. So it's like someone told me this, right? It's like changing clothes, try it out and then figure out what works best for you. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Like we have to find that void and see our strengths if we fit in that void or not. Like there's a void everywhere.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, so rightly said. Ma'am,
absolutely. Yeah.
Ma'am, like we are an organization. Our main motive is to encourage women in tech. And you have a keen interest in doing the same. What, according to you, we can do or our society can do to like empower women?
Yeah, that's quite a loaded question, and there's definitely no one answer to that, right, Rishabh? It's a lot of things. See, first of all, inclusivity of all kinds, right, including gender diversity. First of all, I would think diversity is just more than gender, not just restricted to gender, right? But then inclusivity is proven to be not just the right thing to do, but also something which improves business outcomes in the knowledge economy, right? And I think that's such an important point to underline, right? Because sometimes you feel like, oh, this is the right thing to do, right? So it becomes more of a checkbox item. But no, absolutely not. It's not just the right thing, right? They have research and studies to prove that, it impacts your bottom line. And there was this American social scientist, and I think he's a professor at University of Michigan. His name is Scott Page, and he has these research to back this up, right? His book is called, I think it's called Diversity Bonus, How Great Teams Pay Off in a Knowledge Economy. And that's what he calls out, right? That in this economy versus earlier, in an industrial one, it is absolutely important to have that diverse thoughts. So for me, yes, I would think I'm privileged to be part of an organization that considers diversity as not just the right thing to do, but one which takes us into this better future with diverse perspectives. So bottom line, leaders and organizations, I think, would benefit from having this open mindset, right? And being very aware of unconscious biases. And most often than not, Rishabh, what I felt is it's inadvertent, right? But it's there.
Yes.
People don't intentionally want to do it, but it's still there, right? So it's unconscious, and it takes effort to recognize it and avoid it, and make sure that the people around you also are aware of it. So women, on the other hand, they would benefit by, like I said, putting themselves out there, right? And that's one thing I think probably we can do better, right? Either in asking for help at home, keeping oneself relevant by putting their hands up for new opportunities, and more importantly, having the courage and confidence to speak up, right, for what they deserve. So being very intentional about it, right? I think we kind of hold ourselves behind most of the time. So have that confidence and courage, right, to go ahead and ask for things. What's the worst that can happen, right? You just get said no. But if we don't ask, the answer is always no, right? So that's something I very strongly believe in. Yeah.
Ma'am, like we are so bound to fear the no that we end up not doing that. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there was this really nice visual by cartoonist whose name I forget, but yeah, she had this really nice visual, was side by side, right? And she had this. What happens when you ask? Probably you get no 25% or 50% of the time. What happens when you don't ask? It's no 100% of the time, right? So it's such a powerful visual. Yeah.
So relatable. Like it's the fact and the truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Ma'am, so like wrapping our conversation up. We want to know what is the best piece of advice you have ever received, and you want us to know, like, that have changed a certain part of your life.
Yeah. Again, I think this changes over time, right, Rishabh? You constantly keep getting advice over time from people you talk to, parents, friends, so on and so forth. But recently, this is very recent, which is why it's top of my mind. So I'm, like I said, I started off in a tech background when my parents were non-tech, right? So for me to get answers, I had to turn to books. So one of the feedback points or advice I got recently from one of the leaders was you're over-indexed on books, right? Like you look at books for everything. So, and he said, make time to connect with people to learn more. So we were discussing an article about how, I think there was this article which talked about how mentors or relationship with mentors could help navigate through your career ladder, right? And this was a leader. He was talking about it, and I kind of look up to him, right? And then I was like, oh, but that's okay. But I don't have time to connect to mentor networks, right? I'm always there's always work to do. So he just said, you have to make the time. That's all I would say, right? And for me, my parents had like this postgraduate degrees in English literature, right? They worked in government jobs. So while they had all the intention to help me grow in tech, they didn't know enough, right? So before I had turned to books, I turned to mentor. Like before I turned to mentors, rather, I turned to books. But I thought about that comment often. And But even though I have a long way to go, over the last year, what I've done is I've taken time to connect with new folks. And I do this almost every weekend, right? I talk to students, I talk to mentors, I talk to people across sectors, age cohorts, geographies. And more often than not, people say yes, right? Like if you reach out, and this is on topics from tech, startups, fintech, neobanking, women entrepreneurship, how to write books, angel investing, financial literacy, like a wide gamut of topics, right? And every single conversation I've left feeling so humbled by how little I know. So I'm not like dropping books. I definitely still love books, but learning from people's experiences is amazing, right? So we stick to our comfort zones and people we work with, but you'd be surprised at how much people are willing to help if you're open to learning. So yeah, it's one of those pieces of advice that I would definitely recommend to others. Seek out knowledge from others as well, right? Talk to others. Like just like how I'm learning from you folks, right? All of the great work you're putting together to drive this.
Yes, I'm like, we sometimes hesitate to approach to people. Like, I don't know, there's a fear, like this fear is driving us, like we seek all the answers by ourselves. But if we have approached to someone, they would have been there, or they would have the idea and the knowledge, and they could have helped us in a very better way, rather than seeking everything from ourselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You see, if there's a problem, I'm sure there's someone else also who's faced a similar problem and overcome that, right? And who's the worst thing? And even right now, Rishabh, there are people I reach out to who sometimes don't respond, and that's okay. It's not so much of an ego thing, right? It's like probably, assume goodwill, right? That's one thing I believe. Assume that person was busy or whatsoever that is, right? That's perfectly fine. There's always going to be people who would say no, but you'll have more people saying yes than no, right? So yeah, absolutely reach out.
Completely agree, ma'am. Ma'am, that was like so inspiring to like hear you at. I feel like this can go for like a longer time, but yeah, we are under some time constraint. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time for doing this session with us and sharing some really great insights, which we will really make use in our careers. I will certainly inculcate all the learnings that I received. With that said, we have come to the end of December's session of Inspiher. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Rishabh. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.